Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40, Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you are listening to episode 26. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. Today on the show, we have Janilyn from Arlington, Texas on to share her pregnancy story at 41. Now, she's been trying to conceive for 10 years. She first got pregnant when she was 30. It's truly an amazing story, but she does discuss each of her losses if you're sensitive to it, but they play such a huge role in her journey to motherhood. And as you can guess from the title of the show, her uterus does rupture during one of her pregnancies, and it's so amazing that she's still able to carry a child. And I am doing okay. All the bleeding has stopped. Everything happened almost over 2 weeks ago. And today we are going to be paying for the egg donor reservation. The donor's egg retrieval isn't until the end of April though, but I am full of excitement and hope. May seems so far away. But let's keep it short today. And just so you know, you might need some tissue for her story. I know I sure did. And with that, let's get into Janilyn's pregnancy at 41. Janilyn, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie.
And before we get started, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I live in Arlington, Texas, but I'm from a little tiny town in South Texas. It's not known for much, except it's where George Strait is from. It's called Pearsall. And I don't know, I love to hike. I love being outdoors and swimming. All the things outside is what I like to do. And write. I love to write, read. Not arithmetic, though. No math.
So you are joining us today at 42.
Yes.
Let's go back because I think your story starts, 10 years ago, your journey to motherhood.
Yes. Yeah, I did. I'll start at the beginning, I guess. I wasn't planning to get pregnant. I don't know why. I think a lot of women who have fertility problems always kind of have a feeling that something's wrong. And I did. I kind of always thought something wasn't quite right. So I was really surprised when I got pregnant, and I was honestly kind of scared. I think I was just shocked and I didn't know what to do, even though I was married and 32. I don't know. I was so surprised. And it took me a few days to really kind of come around to the idea. And my life wasn't where I wanted it to be. I mean, we were married and we had a house, but I didn't have the job I wanted yet. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have, all the things, right? All of the way it should be, in your head. And it took me a few days and I came around to it and I was really excited about it. And I went and got a picture frame that had it was a really pretty picture. It had Noah's Ark on it. And I was like, well, maybe we'll do a Noah's Ark theme and it'll be okay. And then about a week later, I started bleeding and I was like, well, I know that's not good. And I went to my doctor and she said, that's pretty normal and that's, can be fine. And I was like, well, okay. And it didn't stop. And it kind of went off and on, and then it kind of got a little worse. And she sent me across town to do ultrasound at a hospital. And I went in there, and they saw two empty sacs. And so it was twins, but there was nothing. There was nothing in there. The doctor that was there, and this kind of took a while. It was, you do the blood tests, and they check your HCG, and it was really high, which is why she was curious about what was going on. It was like 67,000. It was really high. And so
Whoa.
and I didn't know anything about that. She was just like, well, let's send you somewhere. And so we did this back and forth thing to see if your numbers double, all the stuff. And it went up a little bit, and then it would, not enough. And so I went from suddenly pregnant to twins, but there was nothing. And then they said, well, maybe, you're losing one. And that's why the numbers were going up and not enough. It was just back and forth kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really rough week to try to figure out what was going on, because it's like, well, am I pregnant or am I not? Like, what's happening? And the doctor, he wasn't the most patient man. And I know they're busy. He started asking me about my uterus, and it's like, is it septate? Is it bicornate? Is it this? Is it that? And I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, I didn't know what any of those words meant. And I told him that, and I was crying, and he just kind of threw his hands in the air and walked out. I know. And I wish he'd taken the time to tell me what that meant, because I don't know what's going on in my uterus. He can look at an ultrasound and see what he, he knew what he was looking at, and he just didn't tell me. And so he left, and I went home, and my doctor I didn't, no one gave me the option for a D&C. I kind of wish I had. I didn't know what to do, because it took about a month for the numbers to drop. So for about a month, I was still having these cravings and emotional, like, roller coaster feelings. If I tested pregnant, even though I really wasn't. And it was hard. It was really, really hard I felt like a ticking time bomb, because I didn't know when it was going to drop. It's not like it's like some light bulb goes off. You're like, oh, the number's low enough, you're good. I didn't know. I had to wait around. And so it took about a month. And I started like having cramps one morning and had like a little bit of spotting. And I was like, well, I guess this is it. And it lasted like most of the day. I had like a little bit on and off. I was like, well, it's not that bad. It's okay, I guess. And then by about 1 a.m, it had ramped up, and I was having contractions every few minutes. And, the whole, if you go through a pad, like more than like one pad in an hour, you should go to the hospital. I definitely should have gone in, but I didn't know, because I was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the toilet and I'm not wearing a pad. So I don't know what was happening.
Yeah.
I know it's not good, but I was in so much pain. I didn't know what to do. And it took for so long. It took several hours, and I was just exhausted. And then it was just kind of over. But, it's just a weird feeling I kind of delivered what was, left, and I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that was possible. Nobody told me that could happen. And I don't know what I thought it would be, because I Googled everything. And, all I saw was, like, oh, it's a heavy period. And, oh, sometimes people just have them and they don't even know they had it. And I was like, well, maybe it'll be like that. And it's just going to be like a little heavier period than normal. And I guess I'll move on. And that's not how my experience was. And I didn't really move on well. So it was just, it was rough. It was real rough. It was a very hard time in my life, because I didn't know what to do. And we didn't have family support. We didn't really have a lot of friends. And this is, I feel like more people are more open to talking about it now. But even 10 years ago, people didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that was the case, like, even when I was a kid. The only person I knew who'd had a miscarriage was my grandmother, and she did not want to talk about it. And that's still kind of the case. But I think because of social media, I think it's helping to get more awareness for it. And just, I don't know, there's a stigma. There's still a stigma. There's still this thing that somehow it's your fault, and there's something you could have done differently. But realistically, there was nothing. It was because of my uterus shape, and that's nothing I did. So, but yeah, that was my first one, and it was definitely a life-changing experience.
Yeah,
not in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you talking about your miscarriage, because I think we do need to talk about it as women.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have 2 kids that I used to teach, because I was a teacher, and 2 of them have contacted me over the years to tell me that they were having a miscarriage and they didn't know what to do. They were my students when I had my second miscarriage. And so I was the only person to them that they knew who had had one, and they were scared and didn't know what was going on and what to do. And I was just like, it's okay. We're getting through this, like, I had already had 3 at that point. I was working on my 3rd at that point. It's hard to say nice. Like, it's not like I'm happy that happened. I'm glad I could be there for someone else who was going through it, because it's lonely.
Yeah.
And nothing you find online is really helpful.
Yeah.
and your doctor's really not been helpful. And family can be helpful, but not unless they've really gone through it, because it's kind of one of those things you have to have experienced to be able to talk about it well.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just kind of telling them everything that they could read online.
And it's a lot of the grieving process. It's hard for others to really understand.
Oh, it's so hard. It really is. It's still something I struggle with, and that's something I always tell people. I've really found a good place in my life now where I talk to a lot of women online about that, because a lot of them are just like, well, it's been so long, how are you, it just, why am I still sad? And I'm like, I'm still sad. It never stops. I never stop missing them. It's a lot like losing a grandparent or a parent. I don't stop missing my grandmother because she's been dead for 20 years, I still miss her.
Mm-hmm.
And I still miss these babies. I still miss like all the firsts that I didn't get to experience with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long it's going to be. I miss the little people that I wish they, could have become. And that doesn't go away. So there's still days that are sad, and there's days that I'm really happy. And at my baby shower, I broke down, not during, but after. I just broke down just looking at all those gifts. And there was a cake they had my baby's name on it. They had like, welcome Aurora. And I was just like, my other babies never got that. And I was so sad, and I just cried. And it was really hard because I was happy. Of course I was happy, but I was also sad because I miss them.
Yeah.
I miss whoever they would have been. And that just never changes. It's kind of, there is this idea that you're going to go back to who you were, but it's just not really possible. Like you can get kind of close, but you are changed,
Yeah.
You're a mother, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to just go on from that. And if you do, you're probably just bearing it, and it's going to come out in a different way, which is what I did after my first marriage. I definitely tried putting that behind me and tried just thinking, oh, move on. But I got an eating disorder because I didn't deal with that. I didn't deal with that pain and that grief.
Yeah.
And it just came out in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always really encouraging to people to cry, get it out, throw something. I don't know. And don't be mad at yourself if you're suddenly sad when it seems like you shouldn't be. Because who's to say, grief is the way that it is. I'm always sad when I think about when they should be, how old they be now, their due dates. Like for years, I just avoid the holidays because my first 2 pregnancies were due around Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
So I just shut down till the new year, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's something a part of me will always do. Even though I have a baby now, I'll still be sad because I'm still just like, they would be 10 this year. I mean, it's just, it's hard to move on.
Where'd you go from there for getting pregnant a second time?
So I guess apparently fertility wasn't, I don't know what happened, but I never had an issue after that getting pregnant for a few years. I got pregnant the next year easily. I waited a few cycles because after my miscarriage, my period was kind of all over the place. And I just wanted to wait till it got back to what I knew was normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And then I was using those, the little ovulation predictor kits that you can get anywhere. And I was keeping up with that, tracking that. And I'm really in tune with, like, I always know when I'm ovulating because I get that pain in the side, And so I'm always kind of have an idea of when it is. So I took the little kits, I did all that stuff. And I knew when I was ovulating. So I got pregnant again. I didn't really have to try that hard. I waited about a year before I started trying again. And I got pregnant right away. And everything seems pretty great. I had just actually had gallbladder surgery and I got pregnant shortly after that.
Wow.
I know. It was like 6 weeks later. I just thought, this is it. This is awesome. The first one, because my doctor, who stopped being my doctor after this situation, but she told me the first time that, just about, not all women, but she's like, most women have a miscarriage their first time being pregnant. And I was just like, well, okay, you're the doctor. I don't know. And I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't seem true. I know a lot of women who've had a baby and their first time and everything. And so I was like, well, okay. And this pregnancy, I wanted to go in and have an ultrasound. I didn't know all the rules about when they do ultrasounds and, what's standard. And she said I was too early. And I was scared because, my only experience was a miscarriage. And I was like, well, I just want to go in. And I didn't get to. And I was doing STAR testing at the time. And I was feeling kind of sick, but, STAR testing, like, that's, it takes a lot out of you. There's a lot going on at school. So I was teaching high school. I went in because I started spotting, and I was like, well, I know what this is. And they told me it's, it could be stress. Took my blood, and we didn't do an ultrasound because I was still too early. And she said, it's fine. It's not, at least it's not tubal. And I don't know why she said that, because I don't know how.
How would you know?
I know, without an ultrasound. I have no idea, because I don't know what it was. And I was like, well, okay. And then I went to Chili's that night just because I was, done. I was not going to cook anything. And I started getting like really hot. And I had they came over. I passed out. My husband called the ambulance. He called 911, and they turned the air down. No. And I woke up, and there were all these EMS people around me, and I was like, what is happening? And they took me on a stretcher. I had no idea why, what was even going on. And then on the way out of Chili's, I felt this immense pressure, this horrible pain. And I just started screaming, and I was screaming all the way to the hospital, just crazy. And I have a fairly high pain tolerance, especially for internal stuff. I think a lot of us do, because we're used to having cramps all our lives, And this was something I'd never experienced in my life. I knew I was dying. I knew something was wrong, real bad wrong. And it took a long time for them to come see me, because it's emergency room. They had me in there. It probably didn't take that long. It felt like it was that long. I had a friend come up and stay with my husband. We were just all there together. And they were waiting to get back my HCG numbers, because they knew I was pregnant. They thought I was having miscarriage. And they were just waiting to see what the numbers were before they gave me any painkillers, because, painkillers could be, really bad. And so when I happened to know what my numbers were before, so they saw that there was a big drop, and they're like, okay, well, this is a miscarriage, so we can start giving you painkillers. And I was rushed into surgery because I was losing a lot of blood, internally. And doctor, she wasn't actually there, so it was her on-call doctor. She came out to my husband and asked him how many kids we had. And he said none. And he said her face just sort of fell, because I think she wanted to do a hysterectomy because my right tube had ruptured, and because it was a corneal ectopic pregnancy, which is a lot more rare than just a regular ectopic, which is, it's in the tube. But this was kind of in the little nook and cranny between where the tube and the uterus meet. So my tube ruptured, so did the corner of my uterus. And that was the pain I felt at Chili's. My tube had been leaking for days, and that's why I had felt so kind of tired and sick. But my uterus ruptured when I was leaving Chili's. And so they had got me stabilized. They got me, I was sitting there. Well, I guess I was laying there, and she needed to know, because she was like, a hysterectomy makes the most sense. The uterus is really damaged at this point. And he said, not, we didn't have any kids. This was our second loss. And she said, okay, there's a surgery I could do. I've never done it, but I know someone who has, and it still might not work. And so she had him sign some paperwork that, she could do it. And if not, then she could do the hysterectomy. And he asked her, what if I don't sign this? And she said, well, she'll die. And he's like, well, okay, I'll sign it. Oh my gosh. And
at that point, were you conscious to be able to make any decisions yourself?
No, he was making them all for me. Yeah, I was out. They got in there. So they tried to go in laparoscopically, because they thought it was just, it's an ectopic. We'll go in, take the tube out. And they got in there and saw that there was way too much blood. And so she was like, okay. And they cut me open like a C-section. They did, it's called a wedge resection, but the surgery was a C-section. And they got in there, and she saw what was actually going on. And she saw my uterus was shaped like a heart. It was a bicornate uterus. And that was the problem with the first time too. They couldn't attach correctly. And this one just happened to attach in the wrong place. And it was doing okay. It was growing. That was the problem. It was doing well. It was just growing in a bad place. And it ran out of room too quick. And so she had to get the tube was gone, because it was ruptured. It was completely ruined. But the uterus, there's a chunk of it that she just took out because it ruptured. And the surgery she did, she actually she called a doctor. It was 4 a.m, and he walked her through it. And she folded what was left in on itself and then sewed it up. And so it worked. I mean, it's a little smaller, and but it worked. And she told me, like, it's not a guarantee, but it's better than having a hysterectomy. And I needed to have a surgery to fix the septum in there. So I could get rid of the heart shape, the little part that comes down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what she recommended I do was go have another surgery with a different doctor and fix that, which is what I did like the next year. But that was, and if that doctor, the one who saw my uterus the first time, if he had just taken the time to tell me that my uterus was shaped like wrong or had something wrong with it, I could have avoided this. I could have had the surgery to correct it. And then my next pregnancy, because I was still just 33, it would have been fine. I think it would have been completely fine. And I wouldn't have had to lose a tube, lose part of uterus, lose another baby, and all these things. And then the next pregnancy was ectopic. And I don't know that it's true, but everyone always says that, you're more likely to have an ectopic if you've had one. So quite possibly I only had that ectopic because I'd had a previous ectopic. So it was wild.
So your third one, you're now at number 3 and you had another ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah, I had the surgery to fix the septum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, we're good. The next pregnancy is going to be the one because we know what was wrong now. And my doctor said I still had, I had a good AMH, I had good eggs. She said they were young eggs. And I was still, I guess it was 2015, I think. So I was 34 at that point.
Mm-hmm. And
so I was still under the bad age,
Right.
But, 35 and up is like a great place or whatever. And I was still, still good. And so I got pregnant again, doing the same thing, just, the 3 years in a row. I just, did the OPKs and got pregnant, and it was easy. And I thought, this is it for sure. This is going to be the one. It's really sad about what happened, but this is going to be okay. And I went in there to her, and this was a fertility specialist that I was seeing at this point. And there was nothing on the ultrasound. There's nothing. It wasn't an empty sac. It was just nothing. And I was just like, well, what does that mean? And she said it was probably ectopic. And in my left tube was the only tube, at least maybe in my tube. It could be in other places, but my left tube was more likely where it was. And I thought, well, can we give it time to get to where it's going? I don't know, because I don't really understand. Yeah. And she's like, no.
It'll move, I swear.
We get a few more days. Can it, maybe we can pray about it and it'll move up or something. I don't know. I'll push on it. I don't know. And she was like, no. I was like, well, okay. And so she, I had to take the methotrexate shot, I think, and is what it was. And that was, honestly, at that point, that was the hardest decision I ever had to make, because I didn't have to make the second one. That just happened. The first one just happened. And this one, I was deciding that it was over, even though it was, it's not something I decided. Yeah. It was over. It was just a matter of, my life being in danger again and losing the tube, my only tube left. And it was a hard decision though.
We had to make that same decision. And she said, you can take this shot or we can go to surgery right now and take your tube out.
Oh.
So did she give you an option to take your tube out?
No.
Oh.
No, it was she just said the shot was the way. And
okay.
I didn't know anything about it. Again, it's kind of like the DNC thing. No one suggested that I could do a DNC. No one gave me that as an option, and I didn't know to ask because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And some people had told me, they're like, oh, you don't want to do a DNC. It's horrible. But I mean, honestly, going through labor pains and still having the miscarriage and having nothing at the end of it was pretty horrible too. So I don't know. The shot was easy. It was just easy, but that was part of why it was so hard, I think, because it was just over,
For me, it was also the stigma of I'm going to take an abortion drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a friend. She's not my friend anymore, but that's what she told me. She said it was basically me having an abortion. And I was just like, that's not what I'm doing. It's not what's happening. It's really not. But she said that it was, and I was like, well, okay, we can't be friends anymore because I wouldn't do that. I wanted a baby. I was like, this could kill me again, almost kill me. Or, at the very least I could lose my tube and then I can't get pregnant any other way. So I don't know. It's not growing. It's not healthy. It's not going to be okay.
It's not really a baby when it's in your tube because it can't form correctly.
Yeah, it can't grow. It can't it's not it's everything that it needs to be. It's in the wrong place. And it's never going to make it. There was no, it's going to grow in your tube and you're just going to deliver that way.
Right.
Like, it wasn't going to make
Yeah.
it. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So do you think your first miscarriage was probably the hardest?
In some ways it was, but I think sometimes I think it was easier because I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. So it was also new. And because it was all new, I didn't know what to expect. And that's scary, but that's also distracting. I'm all about being distracted. I guess. The third was the hardest just because it was me making that choice. And because I also didn't know at that point what was wrong. Because everything else was explained. It's like, oh, my uterus was bicornate. Well, that's why the first one didn't make it. And that's why the second one didn't make it. But I had surgery to fix my uterus. So why was the third one not okay? And also because I was, turning 35 that year, so everything was kind of getting towards that, the bad end of the 30s. Yeah, I think that one was hardest for me. And also because I know it sounds crazy, but with the first two, I had extreme pain. And with the third one, there was no pain. I took a shot and it was just over. And I really suffered with that. I don't know what it is, just the grieving process. I felt like there needed to be some kind of physical pain. And that way, I knew like it was really over or maybe that I deserved it. I'm not sure. But I started cutting myself because I don't know what it is, but I needed to feel some kind of pain to feel like that was what happened because it felt too easy. Yeah. I just took a shot at the end, and I went crazy for me, but I just kind of lost it. I couldn't handle anything at that point. I was so stressed out all the time. And it was also one of those things and that's sort of the thing about miscarriages. It's very invisible. I'm early pregnancy. I don't look pregnant. And then suddenly it's over and nobody knows why I'm crying in a parking lot. Nobody knows what's wrong with me. And it's hard. It's hard because no one sees that pain and they don't know what it is. And if they start to ask questions. Well, they don't want to hear too much because like, whoa, that's a lot to throw at somebody.
Right. Yeah.
That's like, you have to have somebody who's willing to listen to a lot of stuff.
What happens with number 4?
4 was probably, my doctor said he thinks it was embryo quality at that point. I was 37 and I hadn't been trying. I stopped trying. I stopped doing the ovulation kits and nothing was working. And it was more depressing to try every month and just to look at it that way. And so I stopped actively trying. I wasn't preventing it. Nothing ever happened. And then when I was, I don't know, when May, I think of 2018, I was pregnant and I felt pregnant and I was like, okay, this is it. This is fine. Like I'm 37. I'm going to be an older mom and that's okay. But that's, this is great. I felt I think I had morning sickness with the first pregnancy. And I think it's just because my numbers were so high, but I never felt anything else with the other ones. I had some like breast tenderness, but that's it. A runny nose. I never really had a lot of symptoms. And with this one, I had like the runny nose. I had the tenderness. I felt a little queasy. I was like, this is good. These are all good signs. And I still my husband was very positive about it. He was just like, yeah, this is the one for sure. But I started to be worried because just experience, I was like, I've been here before. I don't know. And I couldn't quite get around, the idea of it. And I was like, the longer, at first I was very positive. And then, as a few days went by, I was like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem real. And a couple weeks later, I started spotting and I was like, well, there it is, And I had some friends at the time who were telling me that, to believe harder and be more positive. And I'm just like, that's not going to change the outcome. It really isn't. And sure enough, I went to the doctor and everything was in the right place. And she said that maybe it was just, an infection or just some, I don't remember what she said. She didn't think it was a miscarriage. She thought it was fine. This was the one. But, a few days later, I started having a lot more cramping and the bleeding increased. And I was just like, okay, I've been here before. I've done this before. I know what this is. I went to the emergency room only because I was worried about my tube at that point. I was just worried about everything. I didn't know it was in the right place, but I was worried, what if there's another and that's the problem? I don't, all the things. Yeah. And I was scared because I did only have one tube left. And I was scared because also it's really painful. and so I went in and I did all the ultrasounds and I'm laying there and, of course they can't tell you anything, but I know, Yeah. I waited. It took a long time to be seen by the doctor, and he came in there and he, was pulling out, and it was sad because I had this view of my husband who was sitting in the corner, just sitting there, and he just looked, it's not even that he looked sad. He just looked resigned. Like, this is just what we do. This is how we live now. And the doctor is like pulling out stuff and throwing it away and saying, like, yeah, this is fetal tissue. And I'm just like, in the trash. That's just where it goes, and it hurts so much.
Yeah.
Not just like the physical pain, but like, just how's that happen? How are we there again? And he was really nice. And he kept telling me, this isn't your fault. And, I don't want you to think it is. Like, these things happen. And I'm like, oh, no, it's okay. I was like, I know it's not my fault. I'm just sad because it's happened, And so we were just kind of at this place where, how are we here again? It's what's even the point? Honestly, at the point that I felt was, what was the point of my uterus even being saved, in 2014 with this whole big dramatic surgery to save my uterus? What was the point? Nothing ever came of it. And I was just like, it would have been easier to have taken it. And then I would have known that adoption was my way, fostering or adoption was my way. Other than, because otherwise I've just been sitting around all these years and thinking, well, maybe I'll get pregnant. And then I'd lose a baby, and I would get pregnant and lose a baby. Like, it would have been easier to have just taken the uterus then, and not have to have this, whole back and forth thing of like, will I or will I not? And losing more babies. It felt pointless, and I didn't understand why. And it just didn't make any sense. And it really probably was because of my age at that point.
Yeah.
But, it didn't make it any better. It didn't make me feel better.
So was it at this point that you moved to IVF?
No, we waited a few years because, well, honestly, like our doctor that I had and when we lived in Lubbock, she told me that IVF wouldn't work for me because of my scar tissue in my uterus. She said that for some reason, embryos are kind of drawn to sites of trauma, that it wouldn't attach correctly, and I'd still, either have a miscarriage or it just wouldn't attach. And so I wouldn't be a good candidate for IVF. And so I was just like, well, okay, I guess I just will never get pregnant again. And if I do, it's going to be another loss. And that's just my life. That's just the way that it is. And at this point, I was just like, let's take the other tube. Let's do something so that it just doesn't happen again. And it took, I guess, a couple of years. Yeah, I think we just kind of put our heads in the sand. I didn't want to think about it. Didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want anything, and just wanted to live our lives and try to be happy, as best as you can and go forward. I went on some mission trips, and we went to England and just tried to enjoy each other, enjoy, life as best we could. And then 2020, I was turning 40, and I was just like, it really is, nearing the end, as far as I know, like, I really need to just close that door and get a second opinion and just, make some peace with it. If I go see another doctor and they say, yeah, it's too late, then okay. We tried. And so my OB called, I called her and asked, who I should go see. And she gave me a name. And then I got a consultation for like a month later. Yeah, it was like 2021, I think, when we went and saw him for the first time. And he was super open about, he told me, he was like, no, it's like, it's going to be fine. And he was very confident about it working for me. And that's honestly, like, that was the first time I'd felt this much hope in a long time, even though nothing had ever started. I took him all my stuff, all my pictures, all my file, like my huge file of my surgeries and everything, and told him what my doctor had said, that it probably wouldn't work for me. And he's like, no. He's like, that's stupid. And I know. And I was just like, well, she said. He's like, no, it'll go where I put it. And he's like, that's how it works. And I was like, okay. I don't know. And I was like, I'm not too old. And he's like, no, not too old. I felt really good. I was really excited. And I hadn't been that excited since, I don't know, maybe my third pregnancy. I was excited at first. That was the last time I felt that hopeful.
It's amazing how it can take one doctor to be confident, beside you, for it to just switch your mind so fast.
Yeah. I went in really just expecting him to be like, yeah, too old, not going to work. Your uterus is too messed up. Sorry, pay me though for this consultation. And he was just like, no, it's going to work. He's like, we're going to get you pregnant. And I was just like, okay. And I don't know. It was just very, like some laughter is infectious. Like his confidence was very infectious. I felt more confident than I had ever felt in a long time about it. He was just like, and I was like, "You sure I'm not too old?" It's like, no, not at all. He's like, much older women than you have gotten pregnant and had babies. And I was just like, okay, like, I'm believing you here. And he's like, good. He's just very confident. And yeah, it made all the difference. It really did. There's a huge difference because my previous doctors had not been confident. Well, I mean, the one who did my surgery, who saved my life, was great. And she actually knew him. She recommended him years ago. But we didn't know what to do. We knew we needed to fix our uterus. Like we didn't know what to do. But he's, just very confident. And that makes you feel good. It really does. Because I needed that.
Yeah. So where'd you go from there?
IVF is crazy. It feels counterproductive to what you want, but they put you on birth control for about 3 weeks.
I hate that.
I do too. I never really had any issues with birth control, but it just feels so weird to be on. And I did that. And I guess it's like to sync up your cycles to where they want you to be. I'm not really sure what it's for. But then I started my drugs, the stim cycle, which is like 10 days of a lot of shots. I can't remember. I think I did some different medicine too. I did all these shots, 6 a.m. shots and 6 p.m. shots. I did that for about 10 days. And then we went in for our egg retrieval. And I got maybe 10 eggs the first time, which is pretty good for 40 at the time. And he said from that, there should be, because I was asking him all the questions, like all the odds, like how many? Okay. Because originally I thought, 10 eggs means 10 babies. That's not how it works. Because I have a friend who did IVF and she's 10 years younger than me and she ended up with like 7 embryos. And she's like, will you keep all the embryos? Like, will you use them all? And I was like, oh, absolutely. So then, I got 10 eggs and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have 10 babies, I guess. I don't know.
I wish those were the odds. That would be wonderful.
I did too. That would have been so great. I would have done twins. I would have been like, oh, throw 3 in there. I don't know. Try it out.
Wait, would Dr. Kaufman put 2 in?
No, he wouldn't. Not for me. I think he will for other people, but not for me because of my uterus size.
Okay.
But one, he said, you don't want to stick all your eggs in one basket. I was like, yeah, especially this basket because it's a little messed up. So we did just the one. But from the first round, I got, 10 eggs and then it went down from there. Of course, you don't realize the numbers are going to drop. Besides 10 sounded great. And they're like, well, he told me realistically, it'll go 10 and then probably 3. And then maybe there'll be 1 that's normal. Cause I did the genetic testing. A few weeks later, I got the call and I had 3. He was right, but none of them were genetically normal. It was 3 little girls and all of them had something that was like chromosome, was wrong and would have been instant miscarriages. Like it wasn't even, they won't transfer them because it would have been a miscarriage, It was a way. That sounds mean to say a waste of time, but it wouldn't have worked. And one of them, he said, was would have made it, but it was going to have like a heart issue and probably would have died within the first day if I didn't have to terminate throughout the pregnancy because it could end my life too. And I was like, well, that's not good, but it's amazing that they can tell that stuff from the testing. But so that was my first round. I was like, well, I guess that's it because it's expensive, Also, who's to say if you're going to get the same thing again? Because it's, chromosomes at that point, he says probably was egg quality at that point, it still was. Of course, because I was 40, I still had a lot of eggs, but, it's a lot of bad ones probably. There were some, he still was, said there was good ones in there, but, it's just getting those out. That's the problem. We can't just pick them.
Oh, so what are you going to do now?
Well, I wasn't sure what to do. I took a few days to cry. I didn't want to go in for my follow-up because I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
This was expensive. I felt like an idiot for wasting that much money on something that didn't work. And I was like, I don't even want to see this man again because I'm so embarrassed and ashamed. And I feel like an idiot because nothing worked, and what's the point? I'm, clearly I was too old. Clearly he was wrong, or maybe it works for some people, but of course not me. And I did go in. I didn't want to, but I did go in. And I told him because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what to do. So the night before I went in, I read a lot about donor eggs and just how wonderful that is, really. And, it's not genetically your baby that you're carrying, but it's yours, your husband, and then someone's egg that's donated, or, you can do embryo donations too. I'm not sure. But I was looking at it, I was like, well, I'd still be the one who's carrying the baby. It'd still be my baby, it really would be. And I read so many wonderful stories about it. And I was like, I'm not worried about something, a baby not looking like me. This baby will grow up with me and get little things from my personality too, just because, it's going to be around me. And I was like, I could do that. I really could. Because originally I didn't think I could do that. And I was like, I could. So I went in with like this idea of suggesting donor eggs to him and asking him if that would be the best choice for me. Mm-hmm. And I really made my peace with that. It is another hard decision to make.
I think you also need to mourn the loss of your own genetic kids first too.
Oh yeah.
Before you can really be ready.
It was 3. And it was like, that's 3 more babies really that you lose. It was 3 girls. I knew that about them.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what my other babies were. These were the first ones that I knew were girls. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I have 2 little girls that I lost, and just a day I found out they were gone. And that's a lot at once. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to take in all at once. And, and how do you move on? There's still a loss there to be mourned. And that's something a lot of people have an issue with, is mourning like embryo loss. Cause it's like, well, it wasn't in you, but I mean, they existed and, they were real and they were lives, and they were little, they were cells, sure, but they were alive and they were mine. And I still love them. I still miss the little people they would have become too. But I went in fully prepared for, suggesting that we do embryo, egg donation, and seeing if he would rather do that, because it would be easier for him. Honestly, it would just be getting my body ready for a transfer, and then using someone's eggs that are younger than, someone younger than me. So it's going to be better quality eggs. Mm-hmm. And he told me no. Yeah, he's like, no.
Why?
He said, I don't believe that's it for you. He was like, we could do that. He's like, that would work. He's like, I believe you're going to have your babies here. And I was like, this would be easier. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I think we try this again. He's like, we try this again with your eggs, your babies. And I was like, I don't know, about that, because it didn't work out. He's like, it'll be different. And I said, okay, I was expecting him to be like, well, okay, let's wrap that up and do that. But he was like, no, he's like, I want you to try again. He's like, I really do. Cause I think this is going to work. So I went in, crying and sad. And I left confident again somehow that this was going to work. Even though
he's magical.
He's magical. He really is. He actually, I don't know what it is about him, but he is magic. But I was happier leaving that appointment than I should have been, because I was just like, okay, he said no. Like, he said no to my face. and I was like, okay, I spent all night crying and reading these beautiful stories about these women who got egg donations and raising these kids that don't look like them, but are their kids, And I was like, yeah. This baby's going to be mine. I don't care who the genetic material belonged to. This baby's going to be mine. And it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be a lovely story. And I'm going to love telling the story to people. And then I go in there and he's like, no.
Because you had already sold yourself on it. And then he said no.
Yes, I decided that was it. I hadn't even told my husband. That was the first time he heard about it too. And I was just like, this is the way. And he started coughing, just like, no, this isn't for you. I was like, what? I was like, I'm 40 at this point still, and like, I don't know if this is going to work. I could get this all over again. I was like, this hurts too much. It's like, it's not going to be that way. It's not going to be that way this time. I was like, okay, but I'm ready to do this other thing. He's like, no, that's not for you. So we took a break, not really a break. It was just like to start my period again, to get back on the cycle, and, he came up with a more aggressive protocol to quality, like to target egg quality. And it was a lot more drugs, a lot more expensive drugs, and a lot more, like even medication. I think I took progesterone, not progesterone, Provera. I took like all these different things, like before I even started, like this, you have your stims. And then I had like this little pre-period where I didn't actually do birth control. I took something else. I don't remember what it was. And everything was to target egg quality. So it was a lot more stuff and a lot more shots. And I added CoQ10. I don't know. He said, I asked him about it and he was like, yeah, it can't hurt. So I added CoQ10 and took that. And I went in for my egg retrieval and got 12 eggs this time.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 more. And they were all mature.
Wow.
And they all fertilized correctly. And from those 12, I got 5 embryos. So it's still 2 more than I had before. And of those 5, 2 were normal.
Wow.
And 3 weren't, but 2 were. And that was better odds than he even said it was going to be. He's, it's like chances are it could still just be 1, but I had 2.
That's awesome.
Which is yeah, at 40 at that point, or 41, I think, or almost 41 at that point, that's a jackpot. You're getting 2 normal embryos. That's pretty incredible. So he was right.
Yeah. So transfer day, that's where we went from here.
Yeah. So my first transfer was supposed to be November 2021. And, they put you on progesterone and estrogen. And or I was doing estrogen, I think. And you go in for blood work to see, and ultrasounds to check everything, to see if you're getting ready. And I ovulated through it, which you're not supposed to do, but I did. And so we had to push my transfer back to December. And I was really depressed and just like, oh, this is one more sign nothing's going to work, And he's like, no, this is fine. It's fine. December will be better. And so when in December, it's such a weird process. You just go in there and it's over pretty quick. December 15th, 2021, we went in and, you have to drink water and have a full bladder, all this stuff. And I was nervous all day. And I wore my socks that I got off Etsy, and he thought they were hilarious because he's the way he is. But they say everything is crossed but my legs. I know. He thought it was hilarious. So I was like, well, it's kind of true, on transfer day, everything is crossed but my legs. And also at this point, you have no shame. There's no pride. There's nothing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, at this point, I don't even care who comes in there. Please just come on in. I don't care. We're all going to talk and have a good laugh. It was just pretty simple, just, did the transfer and waited a few minutes for the embryologist to say it was clear. And that was it. I went home and I was exhausted and I went to bed, and I think I was exhausted for like the next 8 days and just slept.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, and then 8 days later, like a lot of people have to wait 2 weeks, but we go in 8 days later. Like my appointment's March 8th to go in to check. And I had to wait all day to get my results. And my nurse called me and just screamed that I was pregnant. She was so excited. Yeah, it was an amazing day. But then of course there's the fear again of well, I'm pregnant. Cool. What happens now?
Right. Because all is miscarriage. So that's kind of like your MO.
Yeah. All I knew is miscarriage. All I did was sit around and think when's it going to go wrong? And he said, he told me it's a normal embryo. He's like, chances are it's fine. It's okay because the other ones had something wrong, or, there was something wrong with my uterus. And then at about 6 weeks, I started bleeding. And I know and I had an appointment that day too, to go in just to check everything. And I almost canceled it, but my nurse was just like, no, she's like, you're coming, even if I have to come pick you up. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to come in. And I came in depressed and ready for the worst news. And he knew. And so we were both just kind of like, ugh. And then, he started doing the ultrasound and he was like, well, there's a heartbeat. And I was like, what? I know. I had a subchorionic hemorrhage. So there was an area of bleeding he could see, but it had nothing.
Wow.
The baby was fine. She had a good heartbeat. I could see the little flicker. He could see the bleeding on there. There was a little bit of a mass above her. And you could see, he's like, I see where it is. It's like, it's either going to get reabsorbed or it's going to keep coming out. And that day it had been really bad. That's why I thought it was over, because I had, everyone's like, oh, some brown spotting is fine. Well, this was bright red and down my legs. I had not had bleeding like this, in years. I was like, oh, this is over. And I just cried and cried and cried because I was like, this is my little girl. And this is my, one of my only chances. And, what am I going to do? But she had a heartbeat and it was beautiful and it was amazing. I could see the little flickering on the screen. And I mean, I was still bleeding, but he was like, it's fine. It's okay. It's like, it'll probably continue for a few more weeks, or it'll just be absorbed by your body. And he told me I could come in every week just for peace of mind, to come in and just check. And I would go in every single week. And I could see that the little area was getting smaller and smaller. And finally, like by my 9th week, it was just gone. It had been, whatever was left was absorbed, and it was just done bleeding, like no more. And
yeah.
oh man, it felt good. But I mean, I was still scared. It was still scary because like, well, I know people, I've never been that pregnant before at that point. And I know, there's this danger zone you can get out of, but people still have second and third trimester losses. Like that happens. And so I was like, well, okay, well, what's going to go wrong now? And he told me nothing was going to go wrong. He said it was going to be a normal, boring pregnancy. And I was like, okay. And it really was. Like it really pretty much was. Like he was right. It was scary. And I feel like pregnancy was hard because after loss, like I'm more used to navigating loss than gain at this point. So I didn't know how to be pregnant and be happy and just assume everything was going to be fine because in my experience, nothing was ever fine. So it was really hard to sit around and just be happy and, buy baby things and fold them and think about a baby room. Like I couldn't do that because like, I don't want to make a place for something that may never be here. And, and people didn't understand that because it's like, well, you got to think positive. And I'm just like, well, I mean, all the positive thinking in the world didn't help me all the other times. So I don't think it's going to change anything if I'm super positive about it. It's just I'm trying to, I don't know. It's kind of like I was being detached in a way because I didn't want to get too attached. But it's so hard, But it was fun. It was the best feeling in my life, and I wish I could have been pregnant and had it last more times because I mean I swear if I'd been like 1800s, I would have been popping the babies out. It was such a wonderful feeling. I would have been that lady with those like 15 kids.
So you enjoyed pregnancy.
I loved it. It was crazy. It took me a while to feel her because I had a anterior placenta. So I think I was at 22 weeks when I finally felt her. And then I started feeling her right. I knew what it felt like because I didn't know what it felt like at first. It was so nice. It was kind of like having a little buddy everywhere I went. It was so silly. I would go to the pool and I'd be like, well, what do you want to listen to today? Like, it was so ridiculous, but it was so fun. It was fun to wear the shirts that talked about being pregnant on it. It was just like, I was like a little kid excited about it. Once I felt pretty confident that it was going to be okay. And I went like every week, like he kept me till I was like 13 weeks. And so I went every single week. And then I moved on to my OB and she said I could come in just because I was nervous. Like you could come in anytime for just like a heartbeat check if you feel nervous. So I had so much confidence that everything was okay. And I'd done the genetic testing, so I knew things were okay. And so I started feeling really good and I loved it. I didn't have morning sickness. I didn't have, a lot of the problems until later, but it was just fun and it was so wonderful and just felt good. Like it felt right. And it was the best feeling. And I hope I get to experience it again. But if I don't, then I mean, I'll cherish that forever because it was amazing.
Yeah. Was there anything that helped you product wise during pregnancy?
I didn't do a lot. I didn't use a lot of anything. I didn't actually get the baby bump I wanted. I got a pregnancy pillow, but I didn't really use it because I carried her low. So I didn't get the, I didn't have the feet swelling. I didn't get the big, bump. I wanted that. I wanted to know what that was like, but I didn't get that. I didn't use very many things. I don't think. I just kind of laid around, I guess. It sounds terrible. That's kind of all I did. Laid by the pool.
That sounds nice.
It was pretty nice. It was pretty nice.
And how did you prepare for birth and the baby?
Well, I knew I was going to have a C-section because of my uterus. And I knew what that was like because that second pregnancy was a C-section. Like I had the surgery, so I knew what it felt like to not be able to turn over. And I knew what it felt like to realize like how many of your stomach muscles you use all the time. Like laughing, turning over in bed, getting up out of a chair, everything you use your core muscles for. And so I knew to expect not to be able to use them for just a little bit. And I knew that the faster you get up and force yourself to move, the better off you are. So I just, I knew that was my future. I knew that I was going to have a C-section, and I knew to get up as soon as I could and move around as soon as I could. But I didn't read a lot of books. I didn't anything, even though I had no parenting experience. Because I still was kind of in that place of like, well, we'll see, But I just kind of, I have a lot of friends who have kids, and I was like, well, we'll wing it. We'll figure it out. People have been doing this beginning of time without books, and So I think we'll figure it out.
So how long did it take you to prepare the baby room?
It's still being prepared. We're still, we just built the crib, actually. Still being prepared. And hopefully number 2 is on the way. But we started getting everything ready. He had the same issue I did with not wanting to get too excited about something. Because, I had gotten all that stuff for the first baby and it didn't work. And it hurt so much to put those things away. And so it was scary to try to put a room together for a baby that, still might not come home with you. Things still go wrong. And so we kind of just kept putting it off. And people kept asking us, like, is that nursery ready? And we're like, oh, well, we'll get there. And then she came early. She was a preemie. And so then we were busy with baby because she had to be in the NICU and I had to be in the hospital because of my blood pressure. And so we didn't have the time. And then once she came home, we really didn't have the time.
Uh-huh.
And so we're still working on it because now she's 7 months old today, but we're still working on it. But we're getting there because we've got a schedule and she's a lot more stable and she sleeps now. And so we can get things done.
So bring us back to the day you had the C-section and all the events leading up to that.
The day before, August 2nd, I had I don't know, pregnancy brain, I guess. Like I'm still, I kind of have it now. I feel like it's never gone away. But I was sitting there and I was thinking, whose birthday is August 3rd? I was like, because I know a lot of August birthdays. I think I have 3 aunts and my mom that have an August birthdays. My mother-in-law has so many people that I know have August birthdays. I was like, whose is August 3rd? I was like, somebody I know whose birthday is August 3rd and they're going to be mad that I forgot. And I couldn't figure it out. I went to bed that night. I had a hard time sleeping. My husband did too. He just felt like, oh, we're getting so close. Because I was scheduled for August 12th. She was due September 2nd. But my doctor, because of the uterus, the way that it's sewed together and everything, there's a high risk for it to be a re-rupture. And so there was one lady, it's pretty rare, but there was a lady in a medical journal who had the same surgery I did, had the corneoectopic, had the same surgery to fix it. And she got pregnant again, which doesn't usually happen, but she did. And they let her carry to term and she ruptured, like her uterus ruptured.
Whoa.
And so they're like, well, if this ever happens again, we should probably do 38 weeks or sooner because you don't want to get no contractions. The baby's running out of room at that point and there's less room to work with, in this situation anyway. So my doctor was like 37 weeks. She's like, we'll do 37 weeks. That's, I'll give you till then and not a day over. Cause I wanted to have her on August 13th because I thought it would be fun for her to have a Friday the 13th birthday sometimes. I was like, that'd be kind of fun, and her dad his birthday on the 13th. And I was like, they'll be part of the 13th gang. It was one day later and my doctor was just like, no. I was like, okay. And so August 12th at 7 a.m. was when I was going to have to, go in. August 3rd, I had just an appointment, just a checkup. And I went in and my doctor wasn't even there. So I saw her nurse practitioner and I went and did an ultrasound. They didn't say anything, but I wasn't really thinking much of it because we were just talking and having a good time. And then I went upstairs to get my blood pressure taken and be seen. And they do my blood pressure. It's high, but it's been high. And so her nurse practitioner comes in there and she says, hey, what's your baby's name? Do you have her named yet? And I was like, oh, it's Aurora. And she goes, that's so pretty. How would you like to meet Aurora today? And I was just like, what? Because I had planned. I was going to go have tacos and then we were going to go to IKEA and then come back and work on the room a little bit. And I was going to lay by the pool. And I was like, but I'm going to have tacos. Like, I haven't eaten yet. And she's like, no.
That's not the plan.
I know. I was like, I hadn't eaten at all. I was so hungry. And she's like, well, you're going to have to wait on the tacos because you're going to have a baby instead. And I was like, why? I was just so shocking. And so the blood pressure was too high and my fluid levels had dropped. It had been 16 and had dropped to like 2. And so she said, normally if it was one or the other, just one of those things, they'd just put me on bed rests and then still do the C-section the week later. But because it was both of them, I had to go have the baby like then. And so it's like, what you're going to do is you're going to leave here and you're going to go across the street because it was in Fort Worth. Just go to the hospital and check in and then they'll take care of you. So my doctor she was in Florida at the time. So she had an on-call doctor was the one who did the surgery. And I was just sitting there, like getting ready, and it all just felt so surreal because I had been in the hospital a few weeks earlier for blood pressure problems. And I was just like, how is this? I don't feel bad. I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel anything, but it was really high blood pressure. It just didn't feel real. I just kept sitting there thinking, this is like, someone's like, Ashton Kutcher is going to jump out and like be like, you're punked or whatever. And I was just like, this can't be real. And then it was real.
Did you have your bagpacks then?
No, I didn't. What's funny is that day, it was 104. It was so hot. And I love hot weather. So I was just like, oh, this is beautiful. I'm going to come back and lay by the pool. It's going to be great. And I had this little dress on, like a little sunflower dress. There's all this, prep for you, like, oh, what are you going to wear to the hospital? What are you going to wear home? And I was just like, this is before I knew I was going to have her. And I was just like, this would be a good dress, actually. If it's comfortable, it's loose. So this feels nice. I was like, I could wear this to the hospital and wear it home. That would be a good dress. That's what I ended up doing. But I had no bag packed. And people have been telling me, like, oh, start taking your bag everywhere with you. I didn't have anything in it yet because my date was August 12th. I was like, I know when I'm going in to have her because she doesn't want me to have contractions. She doesn't want me to have any labor at all. So I know when I'm going in. So I had to have a friend bring my bag up there. I had nothing. And they brought me food. It was so great, but none of it felt real. It all felt just kind of like I was watching a movie, but I was in it, but I didn't have any lines, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. And people were just telling me where to go, and I'm like, okay, I do this now. I lay here. What do I change into this? Like, it just felt so weird.
Wow. Okay, so now you're there and you're checked in. How did the whole like going into surgery, how was that?
So they had to put me on a magnesium drip because of my blood pressure. And so I had that. And then it took a while. It took a few hours. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's because I was the third C-section of the day. I don't know if it's because there's a few people ahead of me. I'm not sure what it was, but it was about 4:00 and, or 3:30, 3:45 when they finally, took me back, got me ready, and I'd never had an epidural before. I've never been awake for surgery before. And so that was new. I was a little scared about that. I know you don't feel it. I know they know what they're doing. And if something's not right, well, you can tell them,
Mm-hmm.
but I was a little scary. I was a little scared. And it was kind of hitting me then that, I was going to see this baby in a few minutes and I was just going to have to go back to my room with this baby. And what do I do? So we were kind of talking and laughing, and the lady that did my anesthesia was so sweet. We were just talking and laughing, and they were asking me about my tan, and they commented about it because, you're wearing a gown, you don't have much on. Mm-hmm. And there's like, you have such a beautiful tan, but you don't have any tan lines. And I started laughing and said, I don't have any neighbors. They were just laughing. And so we were just having a really good time. I was really relaxed. They told me all the things you do to get ready for the big needle, and it really wasn't that bad. It was a pinch, and then it was over. And then they all kind of took turns pinching my legs to see what I could feel. And they like slapped my leg and like, you feel that? And I was like, no. And this, one of the guys, he was an anesthesiologist too. He's like, well, you would have slapped me if you had known how hard that was. And we were just having a good time and laughing and just really, I don't know, enjoying whatever you could, it was just kind of fun. The doctor came in and she had a playlist going. And so the anesthesiologist said, she always writes down, to let you know what song was playing when your baby was born. Oh, it was really good. It was a really good experience. And my husband was scared. And it did get scary because when she was born, they held her up, they showed her to us. And then that was it. We didn't hear anything. I didn't hear a cry. We heard nothing. And it's not like I could get up because, I'm laying on a table and my husband's behind me on a stool, and they took her to the back where the NICU team was. And he started to stand up, and the anesthesiologist was like, oh, no, sit down. They're working on her, but no one's telling us anything. We don't know what's happening because, you're so used to seeing what you see from movies and TV, like you hear the baby cry and, oh, there's a baby, and they bring the baby to you. And that's what I thought was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's not what happened. They took her, to the back of the room, and the NICU team was there, and they're like, oh, they're working on her. And I'm like, what's there to work on? I don't know what's happening. And so she just kept talking to me and trying to keep me calm. And we were talking about traveling and just different things. And And my husband was a little more freaked out. Like I felt pretty good about it. I was like, this is going to be okay. Like we're not going to get this far and have it not be okay. And he was really worried. But after a few minutes, like it was quiet. It was a little scary. I started to get a little scary, and I think she was wonderful. Every time I think she noticed that I was kind of drifting off to being really, worried, she'd pull me back and start talking to me about something else. And it worked. It was really nice. And then they pulled her by, and the little plastic box, I guess, you could see her, it's clear. And she was all wrapped up in there. And they said she's, okay, but we have to take her to like the NICU. And they asked my husband if he wanted to stay with me or go with her. Well, he went with her, of course. It's not like anything I could do. I had to stay where I was so they could sew me up,
Yeah.
And that took a little bit of time. And I had no idea what was going on. And I still didn't, for a while. They took me back to my room, and I wasn't allowed to leave my bed because of the magnesium drip. So I had to stay in my bed. And not like I could walk anyway, but like I couldn't get in a wheelchair. I couldn't get away from the drip because of the magnesium, just the way that it was. And I was like, this is so sad because I really want to go see my baby. I want to know what's going on. And he hadn't called me, nothing. I have no idea what's going on. But I had to assume it was okay because he wasn't back in my room. If she had died or something, I feel like he would have come back, sooner.
Mm-hmm.
So, he finally came in there and told me, they had to put, her lungs had collapsed. They were collapsing because she was a little early. And they had to put surfactant in her lungs to help them expand. And so he showed me some pictures of her, and she had, a little mask on and little thing on her head and all these wires. And it was so sad. And I couldn't even see her face really because everything was just covered up,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is just so sad. And I couldn't see her. I couldn't hold her. I couldn't anything, and I had friends come up that night and they brought me food because I still hadn't eaten at that point. And they went down and saw her. They did like FaceTime and had me on the phone. And I started talking, and she started moving her little head around because she could hear my voice, and she knew that voice. I know. And so I couldn't go see her, but she was moving her little head around to try to find me, even though she couldn't see me either with all that like stuff on her face.
Yeah.
But she was looking for me, and she was doing okay. She was just, her lungs were just, a little behind because she was at 35 weeks. But she was a good weight. She was almost 6 pounds. And it's just her lungs weren't quite ready. But, she was going to be okay. And they were amazing. Like the team was amazing. Like they were all amazing there. Yeah, it just kept being more scary, but I felt a lot of peace about it. I was like, there's no way this is going to go wrong at this point. Like it's going to be okay. It was really exciting. It was a crazy day, but It was her birthday. That's the birthday all along that I kept thinking. I was like, whose birthday is tomorrow? It's my baby's.
How weird. What a coincidence.
I know.
It was your mother's intuition.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So when did you get to hold her for the first time?
Oh, it was a day later. As soon as they took that magnesium drip off, they had to be on 24 hours. And as soon as they got that off, they got me a wheelchair and wheeled me down to NICU. And it was hard because she's got all those wires, and she has a mask on, and you can't really even see her face. Her eyes are swollen, like shut because of all the stuff that's on her face. But I couldn't really get up very easily because I just had that C-section. So I couldn't really get up very well. I was sitting in in the wheelchair, and one of the nurses got her like untangled from the wires and just set her on me and told me I could do like the kangaroo time. And I put her up against my chest, and I just like looked down at her, and she couldn't see me, but she could hear me. And I was talking to her, and she'd move her little head like to the side so that she could hear me better, I guess. And it was just, it was magical. It really was magical. My husband got a picture of it, and it was just the most amazing feeling to have that. And I love that I have that picture because it was the first time I got to hold my baby, because I thought it was going to be, they put her on your chest when she's born, and that's the first time you hold her. And that's really what I thought going in. Was I had this whole thing prepared. I was going to tell her, like, happy birthday. And like, I waited so long for you, but it wasn't her birthday anymore. It was a day later. So I just held her and just told her how beautiful she was. And I loved her. And she just like moved her little face, to hear me. And it was just so sweet. It really was. It was the best.
What a good story.
It was so good.
And how long did it take you before you could go home?
I had to stay in a week because of my blood pressure. It got worse. Like preeclampsia is bad, but I feel like a lot of people develop it during your pregnancy, and they said, it can kind of go away after the baby's born. But I was developing it towards the end, and it got worse after she was born. My blood pressure shot up way too high, and then it would drop suddenly, and that was a problem. So my doctor, they kept trying different medicine and trying different things, and it still wouldn't go down. And, and everything, it didn't matter what I did. I laid in the dark and I had a horrible headache. I was trying be, in a peaceful place and listen to calming music, all the things. It didn't matter. It was still just crazy high. And they would come check me and they're just like, girl, I was like, I don't know what to do. And so my doctor put me on, she called it an elephant's dose of 3 different kinds of blood pressure medicine to try to get it to come down. A week later, it was getting better. It wasn't great because normally I run pretty on the low side, not in a bad way, but it's a good number. And so it got down to a number she was okay with. I got to go home. I had her on Wednesday the 3rd, and I got to go home the following Wednesday. And she was still in. She was in for about 16 days. But I did get to go home a week later. And I was still on blood pressure medicine. And the problem was that it was trying to regulate and get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I had carpal tunnel that developed late in my pregnancy in my hands. I just had constant numbing, tingling feeling. And I think after having her, I swear the left hand instantly better. But the right hand still had tingling and numbness. And then a few times at home, I was still dealing with the blood pressure issue, and I took a shower and I felt I've had passed out before. I know what it feels like, that kind of the vision tunneling feeling, and everything starts to feel far away. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is real bad. So I kind of got down on the floor and kind of crawled out very, very glamorously, dripping wet and soapy. And I was like, I got to go test my blood pressure. Something's wrong. And it was 80/20. It was bad.
Whoa.
It was really bad. And so I called my doctor, and they're just like, it's okay. That's the problem, is the drop. It's really high, and then suddenly it's dropping. And so we did something different with my medication. And then that was the real problem, was how I'm feeling, I need something. And I can tell that I'm starting to feel bad. And it was just going to take, she said, it could take 6 weeks for it to get back to normal. It's just hard because I'd suddenly start to feel bad and I needed to sit down. It's not easy to do if you have a baby.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice. I had that week, a couple weeks that she was still in the NICU, that I was able to kind of get that under control a little bit. It was still a problem. And it did stick around till about, I don't know, maybe 10 weeks after I had her, and I was able to get off all my meds. But it was nice that I had a little bit of time before she came home, because I had so many problems with it dropping and then suddenly being too high and then suddenly dropping again. And the carpal tunnel, the left hand got better. I swear, they pulled her out of me and it was just instantly better. And my right hand still tingled, and I hated it because it was hard to hold her. It was hard to do anything with my right hand, and it stopped. It just stopped. Mm-hmm. And so my right hand is fine now. The carpal tunnel's gone. The blood pressure is fine. It's all fine now.
Yeah. It worked its way out, I guess. Yeah. Well, how was your recovery from the C-section?
It was good. It was getting out of the hospital was good. It was hard, because it is your abdominal muscles that are being cut open. So all the things that you think you can do, all the things you take for granted, getting up, sneezing, coughing, all the things, turning over in bed. It's so hard to do once you have that done. But once you do start to move, it does get easier. It hurts, but it gets easier. It's not the worst. And then it's okay. Suddenly, it's just okay. And what was hard for me was because I'd had a previous one. So I have another scar there. And so any weight you have on you sits on it kind of funny. And I had a little baby weight. So there was a little more weight there than normal. And it was sitting over the scar, or the new scar. It was sitting over it in a weird way. And so it could never really dry. And one day I just looked at it just to see how it looked. And it was red. It was so red and inflamed. It hurt. It didn't, I don't know. It was so scary because I was like, well, is it ripping open? Is it infected? What's wrong with it? So I went to the doctor and she looked at it, and it was a yeast infection.
Oh my gosh.
And, I know. So we're used to yeast infections itching,
Mm-hmm.
but she said they only itch there. But anywhere else you get a yeast infection, it hurts. And I was like, well, that's, yeah, because if it itched, I would have known what it was. And it's staying too, moist. It's not getting enough like moisture, like air.
Yeah.
It's not getting to be dry because of the weight that's there because of, the
Yeah.
baby. And so she got me like some medicine, some creams, some powders, all these things, and gave me a pill that's like a 1 pill thing for a yeast infection. So I was taking a yeast infection pill for my C-section, like incision. It was crazy. I was like, I didn't know this was possible, but it's possible. So if it gets red and inflamed and it kind of hurts, it's a yeast infection. There, anywhere else in your body, that's what it does. If it's down there, it itches. But if it's somewhere else, it's gonna. I was like, well, that's good to know, I guess. It's new knowledge. There's some more trivia facts for me to add
Yeah.
to what I know.
Exactly.
Useless information. It's so weird. But besides that, like it was fine. It was easy, I guess, as far as getting cut open goes.
Yeah. And mentally, how was postpartum? Did you experience any depression?
I didn't. I was more scared, I think, because at this point, all I'd experienced was loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was happy but terrified. So I think because, she was in the NICU for 16 days, we had a lot of help. Like the nurses were amazing, just, a crash course in parenting, and what to look for and how to, do things and stuff. And I mean, again, it's not ideal, but it worked out, it was really nice to have them there. And we would go up, 3 a.m. and just go in there and see her and talk to these nurses. And it was so nice. And I didn't feel any depression. I just felt fear.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly got up and checked her to see if she was breathing. So I was like, something's going to go wrong. I've got her, all the other ones I didn't make it, but this time I had her. She's real. She's here, but something's going to go wrong. I'm going to do something wrong. Or SIDS, that's like, the terrifying thing.
Yeah.
Like they can just suddenly die and you don't know what's going on. Or she could suffocate and all these things. Like, did I swaddle her wrong? Is she going to pull, the cloth up and stuff? All these things. So I couldn't sleep. And I was just having nightmares. When I did fall asleep, I would have nightmares that something went wrong and she wasn't okay. And I was just so scared. I'd never had a baby, make it before. So I was terrified. And everything I did was just constantly checking her. And sometimes she would be asleep and happy. And I would kind of shake her a little bit to be like, are you breathing? Are you okay? But I didn't feel depressed. I think I felt a lot of anxiety. And that could have been related to postpartum, or it could have been because of all my losses, or could have been just a combination of both. It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of anxiety about it. But I mean, I felt happy. I was just scared.
Yeah. And how did you choose to feed your baby?
So I tried breastfeeding. It was really hard because I was still, I needed to be in bed at the hospital for a week to get my medication. And like, they're coming in, how it is when they're coming in and checking on you and giving your pills. You've got all this, stuff I still needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried pumping, and that really didn't work very well. And she was, all, had all these tubes and stuff still in her. And so it's not like I could get her and position her very easily when I did go down there, when I got to go down there. And I saw a lactation specialist because I was having a really hard time. And the first lactation consultant wasn't very helpful. I told her, how, they give you I got the breast pump, and like it hurt really bad. So I didn't really want to do it because it hurt so bad.
Uh-huh.
And I was already in pain, and I was just like, there's so much. I've got a headache from the blood pressure, C-section, and this hurts. And I'm just like, I'm in so much pain. And she was just kind of like, well, it's supposed to hurt a little bit and you just have to keep trying. I do it every 15 minutes, even like at night when you're sleeping. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard. And then, I tried. I really did try. And I got to see the specialist. And she looked at me, she looked at my breasts and told me that it wasn't going to be possible for me to. And I started crying. I was like, why? What's wrong? And she told me, just by looking at them, she said she had the same problem. My connective tissue it never formed correctly. Like when that happens during puberty, it just never formed correctly. And so she's like, you may be able to for a couple of weeks, but then it's going to be done. And so she said, like, formula, like whatever you can get out, but you're not going to be able to do it longer than a couple of weeks. Like maybe she's like, you might get a little longer than that, but not to expect to be able to do it, exclusively.
Uh-huh.
And so I did. I got a little more out, and sometimes after I came home, I was doing it, every 15 minutes. And I have to do one at a time because I'm a 34G. So
wow.
it's a lot to deal with. And so I couldn't just put the breast pump on and just walk around and take it easy. I had to do one at a time, and it took a little while to get anything out. And then by the time I was all cleaned up and ready to go, it was time to do the other
Oh
side.
my gosh.
So my whole day was just doing this to try to get anything that I could take up to the NICU. And I would produce some. It just wasn't a lot. And they were using donor milk. And then, towards the end, it's like, oh, it's going to have to be formula because I just can't produce anything else. And so we switched to formula. And I was worried because, we still were dealing with the formula shortage. And I was like, oh, what am I going to have to do? Like get a gang together and go raid stores? Like what's
for breast milk?
Like? I was like, how did this happen where everything finally worked and now there's a formula shortage? I'm like, what? I was thinking like Mad Max style. I've got this gang of girls. We're gonna go. I don't know what we were gonna do, but I was like, I need to get my game ready, and it was okay. I found some formula, and she took to it. It was great, and she didn't have any problems. That was another thing I was worried about. I was like, oh, if she's sensitive to it, what do I do then? Because it's already hard to find anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She was fine with it. She did great. I have one picture of me giving her from a bottle, like the last breast milk I ever produced. I have one picture of me giving it to her.
Oh,
I know. You can't tell. Like you can tell if but like I'm crying in the picture because I'm so sad because I was just like, I was designed to do this. Like it's another thing that was like it's out of my control. I couldn't help that connective tissue didn't form correctly. Like I didn't do that wrong. That just happens.
How did the specialist know that you wouldn't be able to produce?
Just she said the shape of them. She said, like, just looking at the shape of them, she's like, that's what that is, and that's not going to work. And I was like, well, okay. But she said she had the exact same problem. She said she had the same ones, like the same kind that I have. And she said that she was doing the same thing. She kept trying to feed her baby years ago. She said she was basically starving him because he was never getting enough. And she didn't know. So she's like, I felt horrible. Like I'm a lactation specialist now. And I was basically starving my baby, but I didn't know. And nobody told me, that this was possible because everyone tells you that if it doesn't work, you're not trying hard enough, that, oh, it works, you're just being lazy about it. Or, some women, just need to work harder at it and you need to do it more often. And I mean, I did it as often as I could. And there was just nothing to come out, like there was nothing. And I had a lot of pressure. There's another stigma there of like how you feed your child. But it didn't work. It didn't work. So we did formula and I have been able to find it and it's been okay. And it's on the shelves. So I see it. I still, if I see it, I buy it. Thankfully, we're getting past that where I need it so desperately. But it was scary, and I was always able to find it.
So you've kind of hinted a little bit throughout the show so far. So do you plan to have more kids in your 40s?
Well, I have the one embryo left, and he is currently with me. Last Monday, I did my last transfer, and I'm now just waiting to see if it took. He's another, like, it's a normal, healthy embryo, and he's from the same, I won't say litter, the same batch as my baby. Like she's the same one. Like they were from the same time period, from the same retrieval. And I didn't want to wait. I wanted to do it pretty quickly. And Dr. Kaufman was too. I went and showed him my baby in October. And he's like, when are we going to do the next one? And he's like, you don't want to wait. And I was like, I know. And so he told me to call in December when I started my period, and we'd start this up in January. And of course, it's not like you just go in January and walk out pregnant. It's like a whole long process of getting your body ready.
Yeah.
And so I went in January, had another consultation, we just caught up and started the whole process again. And then we had it set up for February 27th was a transfer. And I was nervous. I'm still nervous because, I don't know. It was crazy. I went in and, we get in there. He's he's a funny person. And, he told me to get up there and, we do the transfer, and then I wait for the embryologist to say all clear, but she said retained. And, so I hadn't gotten off yet, but, I got out of the stirrups and everything. Like I was just sitting there and they had gotten all the gloves off, all the equipment and everything, but the embryo stayed in. He was still in the little catheter or whatever they have him in. The transfer didn't work. And so they had to come back in, all the equipment all over again. I had to get in position all over again. And then we did the transfer again. And then he stayed that time. But they said that they're sticky. And so they stick to stuff. And he was just staying inside that little tube. I know. And I was just like, well, I guess he's sticky. We know that about him. But
yeah, he just wasn't ready.
He wasn't quite ready. He's like, I don't know yet. And he's like, okay, we can do this. And so, when you leave, after doing because he was a 5-day embryo. So after leaving, I leave the office, I'm technically 2 weeks and 5 days pregnant. That's how, it lines up to be. So I'm like 3 days, I think, in like a day or something. I don't know. But, I'm sitting around and looking for symptoms, and, it's like 3 weeks. Uh-huh. You don't really know anything yet. I mean, I'm just trying so hard to remember what I felt last time. I'm like, oh, is it the same? It could be the same. It could be different, because I know pregnancies are different. Yeah. But I have no idea. I'll know next Wednesday.
That's going to be an exciting day. Yeah, and your brain knows what birth is. So it knows what loss is and knows what pregnancy is.
Yeah, I think that's why this one's so hard.
Anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
I don't know, especially like in your 40s, I don't know that CoQ10 helped, but I don't know that it didn't, because the first time I didn't take it with my retrieval, and none of my, they didn't work. I didn't have as many eggs, and they weren't as good quality. And the second time I did take it, and I had more eggs, and obviously I had two good eggs, like 2 good embryos come out of it. So I don't know. I would say take it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that it did anything, but I don't know that it didn't. And so I would, if I was doing a retrieval again, I would do it again. I would take maybe being as active as you can be, because, once you're pregnant, it is harder to do things. And then once you have the baby, it's a lot harder to do things. So, if you were like, well, I'm going to, get in shape and work out a little more after the baby, or when the baby's here, she's going to be my exercise. It's really hard to do that, because it's just not as easy. It really isn't. And so anything you could do beforehand to be in good shape as much as possible, that's what I would do.
I like it. That's a good one.
Oh, and it's not a product. Trust your gut. I think advocate for yourself. And I think that's a lot easier to do in our 40s. I feel like my 30s, I was not, because I think all those things that happened with my doctors when I was in my 30s, if it had been my 40s, I would have been like, well, hold on here. You're like, no. I would have stood up for myself and would have really talked to these people, like not necessarily rude, but, I would have just been like, well, all right, you've got to talk to me and explain more to me. Like, I don't know what's going on. Tell it to me like I'm 5. I would have had a lot more confidence to do that, but I didn't have that in my 30s, and I do now. So now, as soon as I feel right, I'm just like, okay, hold on.
And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
To enjoy it more. I was so scared for so long that it was going to end that I didn't enjoy a lot of things. I didn't do, all these years, I always think of all the cute stuff you do every month that you're pregnant, and you take the pictures, of your baby, of your baby bump growing. I didn't do that because I was so scared. I got a few pictures, but I didn't do the progression. And I was just too scared to, because I was like, if I do it and I lose the baby, I'm going to just feel like an idiot, because I've got all these pictures on Instagram, and I'm just going to feel like a fool. And I'm also just going to be really sad and attached to these pictures. And then they're going to pop up in my memories, and I'm going to be depressed, and it's just going to be all over again. But if I could go back, I would say, regardless of the fear, to enjoy every second, because it could end, but I would rather have enjoyed a week of it than to have not ever enjoyed it and been worried the whole time.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Just that I think like the mental health aspect of all of it is really important to not avoid. To don't avoid those hard things, and don't avoid the fear. Like it's there, but if you keep putting it away, it's going to manifest itself in a different way, like it did for me.
And where can our listeners find you on the internet?
Well, I'm on Instagram with, my name is I've Got Faith, but it's IVF Got Faith and a little underscore at the end. We'll play on words. And I have a Facebook too, but I don't post that much stuff on there because most of those people just don't understand. It's, they don't quite understand. Like my friends that I have on there don't quite get the IVF stuff, and they don't all get the infertility. They don't understand. So I don't post very much on that. I posted like my pregnancy announcement, which took a long time and a lot of courage to post, but I don't do a lot on there. I do more on Instagram because it's the community for it. Like it's that community that I'm a part of, and they get it. They get it if I'm sad, they get it if I'm happy and sad, and they're just like, it's okay, like I understand.
Janilyn, thank you so much for sharing your story, and good luck next Wednesday. I am spreading all the baby dust on you.
Yes, thank you. I need it all.
And that concludes Janilyn's pregnancy story at 41. I really connected with her story, and I'm sure that is no surprise to anyone. But I do have a wonderful update with her transfer. It was a success. She is pregnant. I wish her the best of luck with her second pregnancy with her son. On next week's show, we have Heidi from Columbus, Ohio, on to share her pregnancy story at 46. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday. Bye.